Nikki Ladue was as bright and fiery as the afternoon Gulf Coast sun.
Well, Nikki was an absolute sweetheart. She was bubbly and vivacious, and she just shone. And she was a little bit crazy. She liked to walk on the wild side a lot.
But the wild child also had a soft side. She was a doting and dedicated divorced single mother to a young son.
She loved her child beyond anything that really can be described.
The 28-year-old worked as a dealer at a nearby casino.
Everybody wanted to be at her table because she was fun, and I think that she really kind of enjoyed it.
It was there that a roll of the dice would bring in a high-stakes win. Her future husband, Phil January.
Phil January.
Phil January.
And he was considerably older than she was.
I believe it was 14 years.
It was an unexpected love story. He had her not a hello, but get out.
She had an unruly patron, and he came down and saved the day, and it seemed to enamor Nikki to him, and she gave him her phone number, and that's how their relationship started. They were really only together for about 8 months before they got married.
A couple of years later, Phil gets a new job in Louisiana. The family is relocating. According to Bonnie, Phil will go first. Nikki and her son will follow a couple of weeks later. But it is a move Bonnie says her daughter wasn't thrilled about.
She was not looking forward to the move. I remember her saying, yeah, she wasn't really into it.
But the move is happening. Tomorrow, in fact. Today, Nikki needs a babysitter to watch her son. Not because he'll be in the way while she packs, but because Nikki has plans to hang out with a guy she recently met named Eric.
They'd go to 2 or 3 places, and at the end of the day, he took her to a sports bar, and that is where things got a little weird. She looked at her watch and she said, oh my gosh, I have to make a phone call. Eric tried to hand her his phone, and she goes, oh, no. No, I'm not taking any chances on that, meaning caller ID. So she left the table and went to the payphone, and when she came back to the table, she was visibly shaken. She was upset, and she said, I have to get out of here right now. I have to leave right now.
Why wouldn't Nikki use Eric's phone? Who did she call? And what got her so rattled? Nikki leaves and picks up her son. It's now around 11 p.m.
She was apologetic because she was a little bit late, but she was fine.
Last stop, home. Nikki and her son had been staying with a friend while Phil was in Louisiana, but on this particular night, they decided to go back to their place. Would that prove to be a tragic mistake? The next morning, 9:45 a.m., a frantic call to 911.
Somebody concerned about homicide. Suicide. The husband is shot at me. Call 911. He's saying get an ambulance here, please. He wasn't in the apartment. The husband is right here. Okay, who else is supposed to be in there? The son was. The son? Took him out. He's 5 years old. We took him out. I don't know what's going on. We've been very concerned about this girl. And we haven't been able to get in touch with her. I was not able to get in touch with her last night. You haven't been up inside the apartment? I walked through. I never saw anything. He walked out in the balcony and started screaming. Is he still inside the apartment right now? I'm seeing him out on the front of the balcony right now. Okay, the officer's on the way.
When past Christian police arrive, on the balcony they find Nikki Ladue January, dead, from a gunshot wound to the head. Cops talk to Nikki's husband, Phil January, who arrived just moments before. He says after finding Nikki, he grabbed the phone from her lap to call 911, but it was dead, so he put it on the table. He also tells police the gun is his. Nikki had asked him to leave it for protection while he was away. Cops also talked to the woman who called 911. Turns out, as Phil was driving from Louisiana to their home in Mississippi, he couldn't get a hold of Nikki, so he asked the woman, a family friend, to go check on her. She says once there, Nikki's young son...
I answered the door and said, Mommy's sleeping. Went inside, could not find her. Phil shows up.
According to police reports, a shell casing is found downstairs in the pool area. 2 neighbors tell police they heard a loud pop in the early morning hours. Some photos are taken of the scene, then lead investigator Tom Puste and coroner Gary Hargrove wrap up the investigation. Their belief? It's an apparent suicide. They leave without talking to Nikki's son, who was just steps away when the fatal shot rang out.
They spent 2 hours. It's 2 hours and that's it. Suicide.
Phil January calls his in-laws to tell them Nikki's taken her own life.
My world just absolutely fell apart. And I go, what did Nikki take? He goes, what do you mean, what did she take? She shot herself. That was just not even believable. Just completely not believable. She despised guns. And when he told me that he had been with Nikki, I go, there is no way that she could have done that with her beloved child there. She absolutely worshiped and adored that kid. She would never.
Reportedly, after the scene is cleared, Nikki's body isn't taken to the medical examiner's office.
She was taken to the funeral home.
No autopsy will be done. But coroner Gary Hargrove did examine Nikki and wrote in his report, there is gunpowder residue and burning in and around the wound. There were specks of gunpowder on her right hand, and the imprint of the gun could be seen in her hand. Also, Nikki tested positive for cocaine, amphetamines, and alcohol. But none of that convinces Bonnie Nikki committed suicide, so she buries her daughter and prepares for the fight of her life.
If anything was ever going to be learned, it was going to have to be orchestrated by me.
Starting with getting Phil's blessing to exhume Nikki's body.
But my husband and I decided that, painful as it was, we would hire a private pathologist to do an autopsy. So that's what we did.
The pathologist's official finding? Undetermined. But Bonnie says he told her something more.
I remember him clearly telling me, he said, I am going to sign this as undetermined death, but I want to say it's a homicide.
Coming up, a mother on a mission.
I believe she was murdered in cold blood.
And was the crime scene corrupted?
I think somebody moved that gun and stuck it under her left leg.
She was found sitting in the corner of the balcony with a small glass table in front of her, sitting in a chair. Her right knee was propped up on the table. Her left leg was outstretched.